Hi and welcome to Ryvis Rambles, where I talk about whatever the I want. And in today's video, I want to talk about the Japanese movie Daremo Shiranai, also known as Nobody Knows, by Koreeda Hirokazu. I've already made a video about another of his films, Shoplifters, so if you're interested, you can go and check it out. I think the link should pop up on screen now. If not, it'll be in the description below. Anyways, okay, Nobody Knows. It's a very old movie, so why am I talking about this? Because I want everyone to watch it. The movie is incredibly depressing, but the storytelling is so good, even though it's based on a true and cruel story, with a few artistic liberties, of course. So basically, it's about a mother of 4 children and their daily life as a poor family. We follow the protagonist Akira as he goes about his daily chores, grocery shopping, cooking, studying, and so on, while his siblings aren't allowed to leave the apartment. And then their life slowly deteriorates. I'll talk about why and how in the next part. Spoilers ahead. It all starts with Akira and a girl on the train with an ominous pink suitcase. It then cuts back to Akira and his mother as they move into a new apartment. Shockingly enough, we see that 2 of her children, Shigeru and Yuki, were smuggled in suitcases, spending who knows how many hours inside them. But that's not all. There's a 4th child, Kyoko, who Akira picks up from the train station in the dead of night. While they're having dinner, we learn that it's not the first time that they had to move like this. I assume it's hard for a single mom of 4 children to get an apartment, let alone such a small one. And I also assume that she doesn't have a job that pays well enough for her to afford anything bigger. Or she'd rather spend the money in different ways. But we can't be sure because we don't learn much about her, except that she likes to go out at night, and that she had affairs with several men, resulting in 4 kids from 4 different men, which there's no shame in that. But if you don't want children, consider using protection. Since 3 of her 4 children essentially aren't allowed to exist, there are certain rules in their home. Don't make noise, don't go out, and don't be seen. Only the eldest son, Akira, is allowed to leave the house and take care of the stuff that Keiko, their mother, should be taking care of, like grocery shopping, cooking, and doing the dishes. The eldest daughter, Kyoko, is responsible for the chores indoors, like doing laundry and helping her brother with the dishes. Meanwhile, the 2 youngest kids, Shigeru and Yuki, are allowed to play quietly by themselves. However, the frequency of their mother's absence increases until she doesn't come home anymore, leaving Akira with little money and the huge responsibility to provide for his siblings. The kids don't go to school, by the way, which is why he basically has enough time for that. He tries to budget the money as best he can, considering he's only 12 years old, not knowing when the mother will return. He inevitably runs out of money, and when he can't reach his mother, he's left with no choice but to pay the fathers of his siblings a visit at work to beg for money. Unfortunately, he only gets little out of it. Once he realizes that she won't come back because she's found a new guy and started a new life without them, he completely neglects his duties. He stops paying the bills, doesn't care about food, only buying ready meals and unhealthy snacks. He also stops showing consideration for his siblings, making friends and spending most of the time with them. However, since he's not paying the bills anymore and spent all the money on his new hobbies, their home has neither water nor electricity anymore. As a result, he's completely disheveled and reeks, which is why his new friends don't want to hang out with him anymore. He later gets a grip and tries to find a job to earn some money for food, but he's too young to work. When asked why they don't contact CPS, he explains it happened before and it was an awful mess. Since his situation is pretty much hopeless, Akira fucks the rules and takes all his siblings out to play. They start to grow plants and a few months later befriend a neighborhood girl, Saki. When Akira is once again in need of money, she earns some for him, but he doesn't want to accept money from unorthodox methods. Saki disappeared with an older guy, claiming they were just singing karaoke, but Akira has trouble believing her. He runs away and breaks off contact with her. That is, until a very tragic accident happens and the youngest sibling, Yuki, dies. Akira tries to reach his mother, again to no avail, and left with no other choice, asks Saki for help. They put Yuki in the pink suitcase and drive to Haneda Airport, where they bury her little body because Akira promised to show her the airplane sometime. After the burial, they drive back home where life continues as before. And that's where the movie ends. This movie left me speechless, even more so when I learned that it was based on a true story. I won't talk about a real story, but there's a video I can recommend that sums it up quite well. I'll try to show it here on screen, else it'll be in the description below. Taking this real tragedy and turning it into such a, well, masterpiece might be a bit over the top, but such a well-rounded piece of art certainly is an admirable skill, I guess. The storytelling of this movie is on point. For example, the foreshadowing with the pink suitcase in the beginning, Kyoko on tiptoes and the plant falling off the balcony, and the pink suitcase being a red herring at the same time, because Shigeru is delivered in that suitcase, but it contains Yuki's body in the end, because she didn't fit into the smaller suitcase anymore. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is Keiko, the mother. I can't imagine that the children she brought into this world were wanted by her. I think that she accidentally got pregnant and had no choice but to have them because she might not have had access to an abortion, or she just didn't care. She only takes care of her children to a certain extent, dumping most of the responsibility on her eldest son. She doesn't spend very much time with them and makes empty promises to appease them. For example, the piano lessons, introducing them to her new family, or sending them to school. Even though she doesn't really show it in front of her kids, she clearly is not happy with her current situation, causing her to jump on the best next opportunity to change her lifestyle and dumping her kids on the spot. Because she knows it'll be hard for her to move on as long as she's stuck with her 4 kids. No man will marry her, which might be true in the circles she moves in, but it's of course not an excuse to just abandon your children like that. Her actions are absolutely selfish. Once you set a tiny human in this world, let alone 4, it's your responsibility to take care of them. I mean, look at her. How could you abandon her? Which brings me to the next point. How cruel it must be to have been brought into this world but then not being allowed to exist. The kids literally have no childhood, what with Akira being forced to grow up so fast and the other 3 not being allowed to properly act like children, never going outside, always being quiet. We have a few scenes where we see real children simply being kids in contrast to our 4 main cast. And despite everything, we also have a few moments in which the child in Akira takes over and his playful side comes out. Or when he has this brief rebellious phase and gives in to his adolescence, behaving like a normal teenager while completely neglecting his 3 siblings. Contrary to his mother, however, I don't blame him at all. It's not his responsibility. I mean, I was glad when he snapped out of it because his siblings are completely lost without him, but again, it's not his responsibility. And yet he waits hours outside in the cold to buy a Christmas cake for his siblings to give them a small joy and fakes New Year's letters from his mom to make them believe she hasn't forgotten about them. Nevertheless, even with him taking care of everything, their situation still deteriorates because Akira is still dependent on their mother's money, which she seems to forget to send once she's married. They slowly fall into a sense of despair, the feeling of hopelessness and resignation palpable. Due to the neglect, once they befriend Saki, all 4 of them grow rather attached to her because she replaces that mother-like figure they're missing. What shocked me the most was the kids' detached and sober reaction to Yuki's death. It only shows how empty they are inside. And again, they did the best they could do in their situation. Heck, Akira's idea to bury her at the airport could even be considered as considerate because unlike their mother, he wanted to keep his promise. If you've watched any of my other videos, you might have noticed that I didn't talk about who were my favorite or least favorite characters, even though the least would be easy to answer, Keiko. The reason is it feels wrong to categorize the characters like that because they're not fictional. They may be fictionalized, but it just feels weird to form an opinion about them. One last thing I have to mention because I couldn't help notice, but there was a weird focus on feet for some reason. I'm not gonna show screenshots because I don't want feed pics of minors on my computer, and honestly, I already feel weird enough for even noticing it. But in my defense, I watched it more than once and only noticed during my last watch. I guess this is a good point to end this video. Let me know if you've already seen this movie and what your thoughts on it, or maybe even the true story are, in the comments below. If listening to random people talking about random stuff on the internet appeals to you, leave a like and subscribe. And if you have any topics you'd like to hear me ramble about, leave your suggestions in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye bye!
いつかモノレールに乗って飛行機見に行こうね。